Respected chairperson and dear viewers, today I am going to present my humble paper on the megalithic traditions in Manipur and ethno-archaeological study. Let me now introduce about this topic. The process of raising megaliths started from the Middle Neolithic and continues up to the historic period through the Bronze Ages. Even though we know that megalithism is a dead cultural phenomenon all over the world, but it is still practicing in some parts of India as a living tradition, particularly in Manipur. In this state, different ethnic groups perform different types of megalithic tradition, but they have varied megalithic tradition in one sense, but on the other, they have a common trait in the performance of megalithic raising ceremony. In this paper, the author would like to discuss on the various megalithic traditions of 4 selected tribes, particularly the Mau, Maram, Paumei, and Tangkhul, with the associated megalithic tradition. Now come to the land and the people. Manipur lies almost halfway between the tri-junction of Indo-Myanmar China on the north and the Indo-Myanmar Bangladesh in the south. From the very beginning, it has been characterized by geographical isolation. The region is a cradle lane of human civilization and creativity, which come under the influence of many cultures of different ethnic groups who came at various times and contributed to the growth of different civilization in this hilly state. The people who are directly associated with the different megalithic tradition incorporated in this paper are the Mau, the Maram, the Paumei, and the Tangkhul tribes. Mau tribe. This community is one of the indigenous and the largest tribe of Manipur, occupying the north and the northeastern part of Senapati district. They are distributed in 19 villages. The village headman functions as secular head as well as religious head. They formerly had youth dormitories for boys and girls. Nowadays, most of them have converted to Christianity and lost their traditional religion. Let me introduce about the Maram tribe. The Maram is one of the primitive and the largest tribe of this state. They are distributing in 32 villages of Mau Maram subdivision. They are divided into 3 circles. They are known as Marangkulen Circle, the Wilong Circle, and the Senapati Circle. Each Maram village has a headman known as Sagong, but the headman of the Marangkulen governs and controls all the headmen of each Maram village. They have their own religion, tradition, custom. Now come to another tribe, Paumei tribe. Paumei is one of the largest and indigenous tribe of this state. They are distributing in 78 villages of Paumata subdivision. This tribe has also divided into 3 sections. They are the Paumata, the Chilebhai, and the Lepauna. Paumei village is controlled by their headman known as Bio. He controls all the economic affairs of the village. Paumei village is economically self-sufficient. It has its own culture and tradition. Now come to the 4th tribe, the Tangkhul tribe. The Tangkhul is one of the oldest and largest tribe of this state. They are distributing in the Kamjong and Ukhrul district. They are again divided into 5 sections based on its location. They are the Raphai North, the Kamo South, the Remyang East, the Kharau West, and the Kathor Central. Each Tangkhul village has a traditional village council called Hangba Wungnau, and its controllers are known as Sangnau Kharanau. In each Tangkhul village, Aunga administers his village with his councillors and serves as both religious and secular head. And his And the hearing of any case is held at the village court, Khongmei, and the final decision is made by the village chief, called Aungma. Now let me discuss about the present research. The author has been conducting exploration work since 1988 and continues till that in 14 districts of Manipur among 16 tribes where varied megalithic structures abound. In 1992, some megalithic sites in Tangkhul area have been recorded, and in 2009 at Maijalung, the author has come across 2 dress menhirs. From 2012 to 15, the author has been working and explored many megalithic sites in Mao, Maram, and Pongmei occupied areas of Senapati district, and the associated rites and rituals of each megalith are also recorded. Taking clues from the above discoveries, the author continues investigation focusing on the traditions of these 4 tribal groups. Now let me come to the findings. The author has come across different megalithic traditions of these 4 communities under study, and various structural and functional types of megaliths abound in each village of these tribes. Of them, mention may be made of the menhir, alignment, avenue, kairan, cromlech, dolmen, stone circle, and stone sheets extending or excluding the varied miscellaneous types. The megaliths abound inside the habitation areas consisting of menhir, alignment, kairan, and dolmen. Each megalith is constructed by performing a grand feasting or a piece of merit, or both. Now let me come to the Mao megalithic types. There are 5 different types of megaliths in Mao area. They are: number 1, Joso 2, menhir and alignment. Joso Tokubu, these are the different types of Joso Toku, but they are known as Tokubu or avenue and cromlech. Third, the left side is the photo of Joso Toku. It's a kairan, whereas Kathimara Toku is a low kairan. It has different functions. The first one is used for religious purpose, and the second one is used for particularly in loving memory of their deceased persons. And lastly, number 5 is Okitu or Okimakitu is a dolmen. And these are the different types of dolmens found in Mao area. All these structures are associated with peace negotiation. Now, let me tell you something about the megalithic tradition of Mao area. Before erecting a megalithic structure in the Mao area, they always perform a series of feasting or feasts of merit. Particularly, they perform 14 types of feasts of merit. They are known as Orakaso, Nobu, Omokozu, Yosu, Yosotoku, Ochijo, Tohu, Ibokoho, Omoashiba, Pitoshiba, Shikoshiba, and Okimakitu. Now let me tell you something about the different megalithic types found in Maram area. In the Maram area, we found 8 types of megalithic structures. They are Baitung or witness stone, Rana Atu, Kairan used for multiple functions, Tasa, menhir of social status or commemorative stone. Arau Atu is a gravestone and also used as the stone sheets. Tarosam is an avenue formed by a number of tasam, that is the menhir of social status. The 6th one is Amailui, is a small avenue. And number 7 is Atusaga Kamatay, it's a holy stone. And last one is a capstone known as Atu Amay Ogija, Puigung Kai Karanijangba, Atuai Kai Bamle. These are the photographs of the megaliths found in Maram area. The first one is Baitung as a witness stone. The second one is the Rana Atu. It's a guide and used for different purposes. First one is used for resting places for the aged person, and also used as a vantage point during the wartime, and also used as the watchtower. And third and the fourth are the different types of structures, but they are formed by the number of memorial stones called tasams. These are also the memorial stones and commemorative stones. The first one is used as a memorial stone, and the second one is used for measuring the height of the Maram boys. Those boys who are not getting the height of this group are not allowed to get married. And the third one is a commemorative stone. They raise it to commemorate the Golden Jubilee function of the Maram Students' Union, whereas the fourth one is used as a commemorative stone. The person found along with this photograph is a performer of the number of Feast of Merit. And after performing the Feast of Merit, he is allowed to raise a megalith in his name. And after getting raised his memorial stone, he is allowed to wear a title cloth. Just now he is wearing the title cloth here, and after converting to Christianity again, he performed a function and raised the megaliths behind it as a commemorative stone. Here we find a number of stone slabs. These two are used for gravestones, whereas the two are used as the stone sheets. These are also the cluster of the tasam. It is an avenue formed by a number of memorial stones called tasam. It's also another avenue. This is the photographs of Atuzaga Kamate. It is a holy stone because all the villagers in the Wilong, they told me that it was fallen down from the sky. So till today they are worshipping this one. And the second one is a capstone of a burial pit. This the capstone is very important. Among the Maram society, what happened while building or constructing the house of the village chief, they used to complete it in one day. So they prepare all the required materials before constructing it, and again they also hunted one human head at least. So any strangers coming in the village, they used to hunt or raid the head. And the decapitated head is buried below the first pillar of the house. And if the house of the head of the village needs to repair, they remove the first head already buried, and they again search for a new head and they replace the old one. The old one is taken out from the place and they keep in the courtyard of the sheep, and then they cover the pit with this stone. It is very important to the Maram society. Then let me come to the Maram megalithic tradition. It is very interesting to record the most important criteria for a Maram megalithic builder. Any wealthy person could not perform stone raising ceremony unless he is a resourceful person. In the Maram society, a person who is wealthy in terms of manpower and wealth, and who has passed the 3 stages of prosperity in his lifetime, is considered to be a resourceful person. The 3 stages are Atauhai, Arakata, and Haijab. The person who passes these 3 stages is allowed to raise megaliths in his name. Thus, a resourceful person makes a stipulation in his burial will that a memorial stone will be planted in memory of him. If the wealthy person has already performed a stone raising ceremony and erected megaliths, he has to seek permission from the village. After declaring his wishes or getting permission from the village chief, the intending merit seeker observes special social sanctions and restrictions for a year. Before planting the manure or menhirs, the intending marriage seeker lives apart from his spouse. If this is not observed, the stone to be erected will get cracked, and as a consequence, the marriage seeker's family will suffer in many ways. This is a photograph of the cracked stone. First of all, the intending marriage seeker also worship their supreme god Saragumba to prevent occurrence of natural calamity like earthquake or death in his family or kinsmen or in the village itself. The intending marriage seeker selects the desired stone according to the advice of an expert person. The individual on that day does not take normal food but drinks rice beer and ginger. On that night, the marriage seeker sleeps, keeping some collected mosses under his pillow and dreams on it. The auspicious days for dragging and setting up the manure are fixed by the village chief, assisted by the village priest. The head and base of the selected stone are also sorted out by the experts in this field. The stone pulling ceremony is a spectacular event in Maram society. When the signal is given, all start to pull the stone. When the stone reaches halfway, the stone pullers take a rest. During this period, drinks are served with some food to refresh the pullers. The stone is thus pulled out to the selected spot in the katak and they lap it there. The pullers leave the place and they enter their respective houses after washing their hands. On the next day, they prepare to raise a manhir. A hole about 1.5 feet deep is dug. Inside the hole, the host puts some iron objects like hoe blade, knife, or sickle. A ritual is performed by the sagong or atingba. The Marams believe that the performer will attain a longer life as the iron objects and his fame will be everlasting as the stone. On the stone raising day, the marriage seeker feeds invitees and guests along with his villagers. He also distributes uncooked meat and rice beer to each and every household of the village. On the next day, the marriage seeker gives another feast to the co-villagers. Now let me come to the Pongmei megalithic types. The Pongmei is one of the indigenous and the largest tribe as mentioned above. Every Pongmei village is governed by the traditional village council and each village controls the economic, socio-religious and the political affairs of the village concerned with the help of the Chikumai, means the councillor and Sako clan elders. There are 12 structural types of megaliths in Pongmei area. These are the photographs of many of social status forming the alignment and avenue. These are the village foundation stone known as Sukho. And these are low iron. It's also having the same name Sukho, but it is raised in memory of a deceased person. And this one is the Pahon Sukho. It is the stone seats of the Pahon clan associated with a dolmen. And these are the Raikubus or dolmens of the highest social status. Among the Pongmeis, what happened? They may raise a number of menhirs of social status. But after raising a number of such menhirs of social status, they are allowed to raise a dolmen. The performer is received the highest social status after raising these dolmens, known as Raikubu. And these are the different types of stones. The first one is known as kettle stones, where the Pongmei used to worship a kettle, and when the kettle moves first, they used to avoid the site for their gem cultivation. And another one is known as Sadaisu or cat killing stone. They used to kill one cat every year just above this stone, not to have any thief in the village. They thought that the soul of the thief is killed by using small pebbles throwing on it. The last two is known as Naisasuko or religious stone. It is used by the village chief concerned only because he used to shout any type of gana will be held and what type of ritual will be held will be announced by climbing on such small dolmens. And the first one is the tapu. It is a monolith related with the head hunting where the villagers used to bring the decapitated head and keep on it and they used to beat until they were contented. And after they feel contented, they used to bring back the raided or the hunted head to the respective villages where they belong. The next one is Susuko. It is a stone circle related with head hunting. The Pongmei used to raid the heads of the outsiders and they used to perform a ritual with dancing, and after that they used to keep it here until it is ritually purified. These are the small stones representing the girl or woman whom the brave man had worn her head. It is a must for a Pongmei because before the person die, he should say to his family members, I should have raised such structures. And each stone should represent each girl whom I have worn their hands. These are the photographs of the Pongmei village gate and wall. They even decorate their village gate with the structures of animals. And some gates are engraved with human heads and some also with animals' head and some with the rated head. Now come to the Pongmei megalithic tradition. Megalithic monuments have traditionally been erected in all Pongmei occupying areas in Pongmota subdivision, Senapati district. It is still practicing among the non-Christian Pongmeis. Each megalithic erection is associated with a series of feastings. They are Raso, Wawe, Mauja, Josu, and Saibesu. For every feasting, it takes a gap at least 3 or 4 years or more to acquire the necessary items like collection of paddy for brewing rice beer, the domestication of animals like fowls, pig, cattle, to ensure that they are fully grown to suitable sizes and accumulation of wealth to defray the cost. Now let me come to the Tangkhul megalithic types. The Tangkhul megaliths are classified into 7 types. Now come to the megalithic tradition of Tangkhul tribe. These tribes erect either folk wooden posts or huge upright stone called Maran Lung, Menhi, and Maran Tarung, folk or white posts or both, after performing the Maran Kasa feast of merit. If a wealthy person wants to raise a memorial stone in his memory, he announces it verbally to all the villagers. Before this, he selects the suitable stone to break and raise. Then the host sees omen of his dream, and if the omen of dream is good, one male pig is sacrificed to feed the villagers. On that day, the formal announcement regarding the erection of the Maran Lung and Maran Tarung is made. These are the photographs of Maran Lung and Maran Tarung. These are raised by the merit seeker after performing the feast of merit called Maran Kasa. He is allowed to wear a title cloth. This title cloth is known as Rubaiyat Kasam, and this cloth is also allowed to wear by his wife, by his children and grandchildren. This is also another manner of social status where the merit seeker dressed into an anthropomorphic form. These are the megalithes of social status, and here we will get a folk pose which is fully engraved with the horns of the animal which were sacrificed during the Feast of Merit. Now we come to the Rihailung village foundation stone. In some villages it is represented by 3 menhirs. One is representing the village chief, and the other one is representing the wife of the village chief, and the third one is representing the firstborn son. They hope that these are the souls of the ruling chief of the village. And also in another sense, it is also used as the witness stone. When there is any case there, those cases are not able to solve, they used to come to this place called Rihailung, and then they used to swear on it, and then they thought that the spirit of the Rihailung will punish the wrongdoer. And these are the photographs of the Onra. These are the memorial stones for the deceased person, particularly for those boys and girls they used to raise by the parents in loving memory of their children, particularly the unmarried children. Now let's see the different types of houses which were constructed by the merit seekers of different communities. Mao, the first one is about the Mao house type, the second one is Maram, and the third one is about the Pongwe, and the fourth one is about the Tangkol. They used to decorate their house gable as well as the front wall of the house with the heads of the human beings as well as the heads of the animals sacrificed during the Feast of Merit. Megalithic monuments had traditionally been erected by these 4 tribes under study. Each megalithic erection is associated with a grand feasting or a series of Feasts of Merit. It is followed by house decoration. Here the donor of the feast decorates his house with house horn. He also decorates the wooden planks of the front wall with carved human and animal heads. For erecting a megalith takes at least 3 years or more to acquire the necessary items like collection of paddy, brewing of rice beer, gathering of stone pulling creepers, domestication of animals, and accumulation of the wealth to defray the cost. Such traditions are similar to the megalithic culture of Indonesia, particularly with the Anakalang and the Kodi areas of Sumba, particularly West Sumba, regarding the seeking of permission and collection of materials for the upcoming feast, and rearing of animals like pigs and buffaloes. The carved heads of monoliths in Indonesia and the own wooden planks in Manipur are not ornamental. These are commemorative of animals sacrificed during the Feast of Merit. Thus, their value is not aesthetic, but definitely symbolic. It may be ascribed as the symbolical character to the art of the early megalithic culture of Southeast Asia. The idea associated with the megalithic rituals for gaining prosperity and the prestige for the living, and also for establishing links with the soul of the deceased person, are similar with megalithic cultures of Indonesia, which suggests a unity of megalithic tradition or megalithic complex extending from Northeast India to Southeast Asia. Now let me come to a tentative conclusion. Megalithism is a living tradition in Manipur with some modification. Even Christian convert Mao and Marams raise megaliths with some modification as memorials and commemorative stones while they are living and also after their death. Structurally, there are 11 megalithic types, including the miscellaneous types. And functionally, they are again divided into 8 types. The megalithic heritage of Manipur have close similarities with those of Southeast Asia, particularly with the Nyasians in giving Fish of Merit and Mithun's horn carvings. Thank you all for patient hearing.